Welcome back to the Musical Mind. My name is Chris Cody. On today's show, I'd like to talk about Reaper, which is my musical recording software of choice, our digital audio workstation if you prefer. I've been a pretty devoted Reaper user for almost 8 years now, and I don't really foresee that changing anytime soon. I just really love it. It's really logical and makes a lot of sense to me and my workflow. It's a super lightweight program, and I don't mean it's basic or simple as far as what its capabilities are, but that it's not overbloated with programming code. I think it's something like 10 megabytes, which is tiny considering what you can do with it. It's also very well supported. There's constantly new updates available. I think like every 10th time I open the program, there's a new version available. There's a huge community of users who write extensions and plugins for it. It's really, for a lack of a better term, a living, breathing program. It's not collecting dust on a server somewhere. Reaper was developed by Justin Frankel, who's credited with developing Winamp, which is one of the earliest software MP3 players. It's my understanding that Mr. Frankel developed Reaper after he began making his own music, and when he found there were certain things that he wanted to be able to do and wasn't able to within whatever software he was using at the time, he went and decided to create Reaper in response to those needs. My own personal history with Reaper goes back, as I said, about 8 years. Before that, I was using GarageBand, and before that, I did a little bit of work in Acid Pro. Everything before that, I was recording on tape. Acid Pro tended to favor loop-based production, which wasn't really my direction. In GarageBand, I liked using that for a while. It was a pretty easy introduction to computer-based recording in a way that I tended to work. And a pretty decent degree, it resembled a typical DAW. But with later versions, it started to change into something that I really didn't like. It became very Apple proprietary in its implementation and style, which Apple tends to do, I guess, to separate themselves. I guess they figure if they get someone used to a certain way of working that no other programs resemble, then they can hang on to those customers. Final Cut Pro, which is their video editing software, made the same kind of break from convention and industry standards, and there was quite a bit of an uproar over that. So by the time I got around to playing with Reaper, I was definitely ready to step up to something more professional, more powerful, and I took to it very quickly. I've heard people say that they think it has a steep learning curve, but personally I didn't find that to be the case. And I'd played around with Pro Tools and Logic Pro to some extent, and frankly found those to be harder to learn. But I guess everyone is different. Whatever makes sense to one person might not make sense to another person, vice versa. But what's hard to beat about Reaper is the price tag. Actually, before I say anything about cost, I should say that the trial version, which is fully functional in every way, at least it was when I was using it in trial mode, is extremely generous. You get occasional reminders to purchase the program, but there's definitely a sense that these are developers that want you to use their program. And if you end up using it a lot and liking it, I think like me, you'll only be too glad to pay the license fee. I purchased mine, which is labeled as being licensed for personal/small business, which I am, for $60. That's still the price, and I bought my license years ago. And by the way, small business equates to $20,000 a year of revenue generated from using the program. Anything above that, and you need a commercial license, which still is a great deal at $225. Recently, Reaper 5 came out. Reaper 4 was originally released in 2011, so they definitely got a lot of miles out of it. I've been using version 5 for a couple months now and haven't really run into anything I don't like about it so far. A few things in the dock have moved around, but they're really easy to find again. And in fact, some things are easier to find, I think, like modulation parameters, for example. Some of the bigger updates include support for VST3, which, full disclosure, I haven't used. I'm not sure that I will. I haven't run into any personal limitations with standard VSTs yet. But apparently VST3 offers things like multiple dynamic in-outs, which, unless I've misunderstood it, allows changing configurations without a power reset. Again, I don't use VST3, so I can't be certain about that. Something I do use quite a lot are take effects, though, which I think are the coolest thing in the world since I started using them only about a year ago. I'll show you that when we take a look at the program in a minute here. With Reaper 5, take effects are significantly improved with automation and MIDI features. Something else that's new and cool is the ability to customize metronome patterns, which I can imagine being quite useful, especially if your track follows more of a syncopated pattern of accents and doesn't really establish its rhythm to a standard downbeat, upbeat click. There's also greater support now for video, so film composers are finally getting some love in that department. I don't use Reaper for video, so I can't say too much about that. But let's go ahead and take a brief look at the program. Okay, so I've got the program open here, and as you can see, the tracks here are different colors, and the lanes here also. And the way that I set that up is under the extensions here and under auto color icon. And basically you can say, you can make a list of different instruments that you might use in your workflow and assign a color to them. So anytime that I type bass, I'm going to have this color here, and you can change that color down here by clicking on it. And I've got it to a purple now. I'll just keep it like that. And we'll close that, and I'll just show you, add a track to the end. And if I type, for instance, piano, and you see that'll fill in automatically to blue. Don't need that track in this song, so we will remove it. And then I basically line them up. Okay, so one thing that I just mentioned were take effects and how much I like those. Now, previously what I would do is, if say I wanted a delay to come in on this synth at some point, what I used to do is I'd go into my effects and I'd add the effect to the whole. Let's take a delay here, a Reaper delay, and then what I would do is I would create an envelope for the delay, and say I wanted to get, wetter, and then I would draw, an automation curve here, and then I would have to bypass, and before that I would have to bypass the effect, and that was kind of complicated. So with take effects, what I can do is I can say, well, I want the effect to start here, and so I can put a split there. This is kind of dirty, and I'm not really paying too much attention to where I'm splitting or anything. Split the track, and well, I just hit S, but you can actually go down here to split items at cursor in the right click menu or the control click. And now when I right click here, I can go to take and show FX chain for active take, and I can just add the delay. Well, actually, let's go back and say I only want it to be for this long split. Add another split. So this segment here, I can look at my effects chain. I can add the delay, and then that little green effects thing shows up. And now I've got a delay that will happen just there, and so I don't have it running the whole time, and I don't have to shut it off with a bypass function, which just takes a lot of time. And I'm sure, I'm certainly no genius for figuring this out, and in fact, the fact that it took me so long to learn this is maybe a little embarrassing, but regardless of that, it's awesome. And now I can have that effect, and now with Reaper 5 I can do some automations to it, so taking your take effects even a little bit more to a more nuanced level. So that's that. Oh, and what else did I talk about? I talked about some of the metronome features. Here it is, beat pattern, your classic ABBB click, 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 click. Well, now I can recompose that. Say I want it to do AABA. Click, 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 click. That's just a simple stuff, and I can save, and they'll save those, and I can go between them. So it's a little thing, but still pretty cool. So that's just a couple things. I know I mentioned a lot of things, and I'm not going to go into a huge tutorial here within Reaper. Just wanted to give you a quick look at it. Do yourself a favor, if you're in the market for something, check it out, try the free trial, and see if you like it, and let me know what you think. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, which we'll mention now that the program's about to end, is I am not being paid by anyone to say this stuff about Reaper. This is purely my own feelings about this program. I really do love it. And I just wanted to make that clear in case it sounded like I was some sort of sponsor for Reaper. I'm definitely not. It's just a great program. So thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about Reaper. And I will see you guys in the next video. All right, take care.